So we got our steel delivered today. His cab is narrow, so the pieces can sit on either side of it, I believe, or at least maybe on the driver's side of it. And he can run a little remote, put it wherever you want. He can set it in your new build foundation for you a lot of times if that's something that you want to do. So we'll just set her there. I wanted to get him unpacking it off the truck, but I didn't get here in time. I asked for a call ahead, it didn't get a call ahead, and then you say, you know, trying to get full video coverage of this project, and you know how much they care about that. That's the world's tiniest violin, playing just for me. And we'll set that there, get this guy on his way. Here's a fun little discrepancy. To start with, I'll say this is about what I envisioned, like we talked earlier in this series. It's technically a wide flange member, but in terms of aspect ratio, it doesn't seem that wide as compared to how tall. And it's a 0.19 web or wall thickness there. And we got our 33 or whatever feet long, and our heavy 4-inch column, 2 of our 3-inch columns for the other 2 places on the main steel here, and then the column that is bisecting the 2 or 3 layer glue lam that I'm going to add to one of the joists right along the stairwell on the far side from us here, because that is the original outside wall of the home, and maybe looking at this from outside will make it clearer as to why. Oftentimes you think of in typical construction, a solid column to a header over this window, to 2 solid columns down to the sill plate onto the foundation, having one end of the ridge beam or king going through it, and thereby that's a load-bearing wall on your gable end. But in some other these other types of construction, when the rafters just sit together and it's not onto a main beam or a king in the end, there is no heavy build to the end walls of the gables. It's loaded out and down to the eave wall, which makes this more of a load-bearing wall over here, as well as being tied across so that the triangle doesn't open up on you, and thereby, you know, keeping the triangle tied in, your walls stay vertical, but they are fully loaded. And that's this wall out here, the original ridge, the original exterior wall. And so that's, oh, I beg your pardon, yes, it is back there. It's coplanar, I think, with the garage wall. Right, and so it goes right along, well, no, it's back from it. So here's the garage out here, and back there is that original outside of the house, where the joists over there turn to come in this way. This was an addition. And this over here as well. And so, that wall where it disappears with that window, where it disappears inside, where it lands, all of its vertical framing is the stairwell, right-hand side as you go down, or as you used to go down. I think we're going that way again with our new stairs. But that is where, right here, that's where we've got our heavy pier. See him there? And right between this wall and there, right here's the stairwell. I got to uncover this, and he's underneath that with blocking and stuff. But I'm just going to do what he's done here and get under that with a lifting shore to get this house down. And then later, after Sean's gone, we'll peel that open. I don't think that I need that to have a post under it until, you know, unless it's talking for long term, because I just can't see that having a problem. The question becomes, if I support it, then later I got to dig that, where am I here on camera? I got to dig this lower plate. If I'm underneath it the way his blocking's underneath it, further over there a bit, but yeah. Actually right on top of the current pier that's waiting for the post, just to the side of where the post should be, definitely, so that I could set the new post in next to the temporary pier, or lifting shore, I'm sorry, and get it right where how I want it, and take the shore away and have the post installed. But for that to be the case, I've actually got to get this out of here, and so I can't do anything until Sean comes back. And I don't think Sean wants to deal with it at all. And if he does, it'll be because it's blocked. And that's how it was from the get-go. And so these are things that we're going to have to accommodate. We got some fiddling to do there and fiddling with this other beam. And he's not going to like the time that we have to spend here probably. But it's just a fact of the matter to get everything copacetic. But meanwhile, today, you've seen me do the plating. I'm not going to do all the video, you know, time lapse of me plating the rest of this whole thing. It's going to be just about the same stuff, wrenching out the window plugs, especially out here in the sun where it's real dry. You notice a lot of this is looking more and more white, probably since I covered it last time. drying out, and get the gasket and plate on there. It's a lot of scrambling around and dragging ladders around and dragging long sticks of lumber and trying to find a way to drill through them without drilling into concrete by accident underneath. Trying not to hook your components of your body on any of those bolts or any of these steel tags, and let them, you know, try not to let them cut your legs up, this and that. And so moving the camera all around and, you know, not being able to have it play my audiobook or run some music for me or whatever, it's just too much of a pain. So there's my long explanation as to why the previous video probably covered this plate, and we're just going to rock and roll through the rest of this. Here's something I'll mention immediately. If you noticed when I pulled these out at the end of the last video, the box was framed in such a way that the stiles, S-T-I-L-E, on both sides passed the rails of the top and the bottom. And so taking the top out meant having to cut through the edges to cut the nails. But these have all been framed so that the rails, the horizontals, pass the stiles, which butt. Which means blasting the top off of this thing is just a matter of, first I blast the plywood off the face of it, then smack up on the top, and that comes right up without having to do any cutting with the Sawzall. Then the sides will tip in really nicely and tip out of there, but they don't bring the bottom. And that's where I'm thinking, if you want to do a really nice job here and be smart, because you're going to do everything, and see, the building of the boxes is normally somebody else, and yada yada. So me, I would either specify that I wanted it this way or I build it myself next time. But I think letting those pass the bottom would rip it up and out of there with them the way that it did over there, but passing the rail of the top as installed makes it easy to pull him off to start with. So that's how I would do it. The top rail would go from one end to the other and pass the stiles on the side. The stiles would pass the bottom, and it would be nailed that way. Thereby, removing it is the easiest it could possibly be, in my mind. Short of also using the same mold release on those as we used on the mold walls, which I assume they did but didn't see. So who knows whether or not none of this is meant to be taken as necessarily a mistake. I'm just spending the time here to notice details that if they're between two steps in the process, they get lost in the shuffle. And so since I'm here through all the steps, I'll point out where some of this stuff could be even more efficient, just because it pleases me to do it. And if it helps somebody, it helps them. So here's something I just realized, not to mention my lens is dirty. Generally speaking, you would plate right across the tops of all these openings, which is what I've done here. And that's your rough opening, which is spec'd. Oh, that's still got the mold part in it, but this would be, theoretically, this is a window. Then from the bottom of the sill plate to the bottom of the concrete of the opening is your rough opening for the window. But of course, these will have to be cut out to actually set this house down. And so if the little buck, or whatever you want to call it, is spec'd or built to the rough opening size that the windows call for, and then you have to cut 1.5 inches out of the top of it to accommodate the beam, because that hole is going to become a window, your rough opening is 1.5 inches too tall. And so if that's going to be the case on this one, I'll cut these pieces out and they will fit really nicely without a lot of cutting and measuring. This is still the best way to do it. I can float the Sawzall up the edges of the concrete and cut him out of there and set him aside, or coordinate him somehow to the opening, and so he can be reapplied back up and just screwed up into the bottom of the old sill, rather than trying to pull a measurement in there and hoping that the ends of the cut on the piece that you make and the piece that, or the pieces that you made prior, hoping that they all fit together tightly or anything. This will be the best way. Each piece will fit in there like a puzzle piece. However, if those bucks could have been built 1.5 inches shy, then when I cut, or when I plate, I could simply stop short and then start again, and the old sill would become the top of the rough opening more appropriately. Because Everything about this double sill plate thing is kind of a tripping hazard, because I think we're going to see it. Unlike when you build a new home, you sheathe the edges of the rim joist, you go right by this and you go down onto the concrete. Some people half an inch, I like to see an inch or something like that. In the case of this house, there's quite a lot of, like, this is your sheathing. This is a siding product and another siding product or two here, you know, so it's ultra thick. So it will, I think we plumbed for the foundation over here, and so even though there'll be an extra inch and a half, there'll be this heavy outside. Look at the thickness of, again, sheathed siding and then sided again rather than pulling the old siding off, which would be a best practice. Next time somebody sides this house, I would pull everything right down and off. I would probably even pull the sheathing off, and I would insulate, and then I would use like a zip system or at least house wrap this, and then I would side it. But that's for the next people. That's a major, kind of a pseudo major project on, you know, along the lines of this project here, which we're not going to do that. So, long story short, I haven't made any errors here, because the best way to make sure that we have the flexibility to have the right height in all of our rough openings is to keep those pieces, cut them free, and reapply them if we need them. And so that's that. Back to work. All right, the car's running. I'm ready to bounce from here today. Mark's trailer is here. He and his guys will be here tomorrow working. I'm gonna try and get that whole thing somehow on camera for yous. I got the plate notched over here, and I can finish bending that around when I'm down in there next. Used up all of the unweathered, sheltered joists from the porch that was removed here and it was stacked over there. Then I got our foam blocks that were kind of stickering it off the ground, off the grass, so it could start growing back. No need for that to kill the grass any further. And I need about 80 feet, I think, of 2x8. So about 5 16-foot sticks. I'm not going to put anything shorter down, it just turns into a pain in the ass. I need a couple short pieces here, a couple short pieces there, but for the most part, that's what I'll have off of the overhang from the longer pieces being trimmed. And so, like I say, 5, 6, and 16 will do it. Can I put them on the car? No, not because I can't hold it up. It's because the bars, the roof rack, it's like 2.5, maybe 3 feet apart. And so it'll just be dangling down like noodles in the front and the back. So, can Jeremy deliver it to my site for me? And can I make that worth his while? Any cheaper than borrowing my other friend's truck, who I like to pay, and getting it myself and getting his truck back to him and paying that time. So, one way or the other, we'll get the lumber over here while my truck's broken. It's certainly not worth lumber delivery. But when I'm covering the mason tomorrow, I'll probably finish up plating. And then, if not, a little bit Monday, plus a little backfill into the front of the garage there, which would mean that it's given as much time as I can before I go start, you know, pushing on the concrete. And then we're ready to lower. I do have to crawl around the old plate and cut any loose nails sticking down or anything like that. And little details. Oh, and finish taking the tops out of the window opening so the beam can come in. Not in the front though, I'm going to leave them there, but the rest of them, I'll cut those pieces out, mark them corresponding to the window opening, and set them probably on the floor inside in the basement. Stuff like that. Alright, out of here for now.
Get rich, but we might get internet famous.
Right. Last time I uploaded something, I think I got 3,500 views on the most recent video of this series. You guys are getting the rest of our chimney base in here. Jeremy and I brought your materials down for you. I gotta knock the rest of these wall plugs out. And they're working. I'm gonna try not to work overhead while they're doing their thing, but I gotta get the rest of the plate on. I had to get Jeremy to bring me the rest of my 2x8 because I don't have a truck right now, which is a real pain in my ass. It looks like we're gonna mix up. Must have brought the mixer just to fill. It's called grouting, or yeah, grouted in usually, like on a preparation for a steel construction install in terms of concreting. If you're gonna like this package system skids and stuff that I designed earlier in my career, it's gonna be grouted in. It means it's gonna come in and sit down, and the little cracks and stuff, the shimming of the whole thing, the device to fit exactly to the concrete situation is means it's going to be grouted, or like a cope. So we got to get our lumber paperwork put away, and then I'm going to bust out and continue to plate everything all up. Maybe leave this time lapse on the rest of their project. I was saying I wanted to get the whole thing, but I missed the beginning of it, running around a little bit. Okay, well, I ended up covering all the plating. I didn't think I was gonna, but we got the mason in there doing his thing as well. Oh, there's this thing I was looking for. You may have noticed this one had to fight me. It's the only one I wallered all the holes on it and slid them over. I ended up just making them a pill shape by re-drilling to the side of each one, which should be no problem. I don't know what happened there. This is really, plating's kind of a two-man project, especially when you can't walk up and do it without using ladders and stuff. It's nice to be up there and have somebody handing you tools back and forth, run the other end of the board for you, keep it aligned while you tap it and get all the, because if the anchor bolts, if one's quite low between two taller ones, it's hard to blast the board down hard enough there to make a mark. And if you can by yourself, then you bounce the other end of it around, yada yada. I'm about to run out of battery, so anyway, this is looking great. Got the clean out in just like Ed wanted. Pockets are mashed to let the beams in. They'll fill those in for me later. I got some mortar and block left over, fill in those holes. See if you can't put my window units in for me as well. And I'm going to pack up tools and get out of here on my Saturday. Monday, I got some stuff that I noticed overhead. Like there is an additional tongue and groove, like 3/4 inch board on the sill plate to this addition, which I got to check and see if that's coplanar with the rest of the sill plate on the house, in which case I'll leave it on. And if it builds up thickness, I'll take the opportunity to take it off. I'll have to cut it free to either side of places where, like, Sean's blocks are underneath and holding it up, so I'll have to leave those pieces in there, dig the rest of it down. Again, not sure if it will be necessary. I got to go around the entire thing except for the garage and cut the tops of all the bolts off with the grinder. So, oh, and I got to backfill our way into the garage and cut the tops out of all the window holes that truly need to let a beam through there, and throw them on the floor inside, probably so they correlate to the opening that they came from. So in the event that we need that back up there for a better rough opening, it can just be stuck up. It'll fit perfectly, and I won't have to sit there and measure and install things upside down and work on a ladder again. The easiest thing to do, like with framing, is to run all your floor plates long through doorways and stuff, and it'll control your wall for straightness and make sure things are aligned. And then it's far more cost effective to do that and cut what you need out of them later than it is to put piece after piece after piece on, because as a sense, or for the reason that when you're paying time to make a piece that long and that long and that long and get them lined up with a string line and doing it again here, it just adds up a lot of pay time. So the cheaper thing to do is to buy a plenty long stick, to go around, cut the pieces out, and in our case here, we need them anyway, most likely. So, and if not, couple $50 worth of lumber, just gonna get lost in the shuffle, and we'll need treated blocks around here anyway. So there you go. Thanks for watching. We'll see you.